everybody. Welcome to the Donnie Williams Show. I'm Todd Anderson here to tell you stories from my career as an actor. Been going on for more than 20 years now. And I tell these stories because Donnie Williams told me to. Hey, Donnie. So last time I left you with a real cliffhanger. I know you've probably been spending the week going, oh man, I gotta find out what happens next in Todd's Melissa McCarthy stories. And I don't blame you. It's exciting stuff. Just a quick recap, like they used to do in the 80s when they had two-parters on TV. I worked on a show that aired in the year 2000 called DC, produced by Dick Wolf. Who I was actually an act of desperation as casting wise because the guy that they had cast dropped out, so I was an emergency last minute fill in, and Dick Wolf said about me, this kid was a real slam dunk. That's right. I also introduced Dick Wolf to the red eye, which is a shot of espresso or two shots of espresso in a black coffee. And that was the first time he'd ever had it. So you're welcome, Dick Wolf. Also, on the last day we shot the pilot of DC, Dick Wolf said to me, you know what? You're great. You're a great actor. It was great to work with you. And I think you would make a really good rapist or a really good child molester on Law and Order. So if you're in New York, give me a call. I'll put you on the show. I can't, take trips to New York willy-nilly. That's expensive, so that never happened for me. But who knows? Maybe he'll remember 20 years later if I go to New York. Oh, God. Probably not. So, as I said in the last show, I did a couple episodes of this DC and worked with Melissa McCarthy, including the scene where we played softball together, and she was very, very, very funny. And then from there, she rose up to huge superstardom, and from there, I stayed the course. I maintained the same level moving forward. It's sort of a anyway while she was but that's all good because I love her. She cracks me up. She cracks my son up. We sit and we watch Melissa McCarthy movies together all the time. We love her. She's hilarious, and she's also very sweet in person. She really is. And I had an audition for a show. And the show was actually being written and produced by a number of people that I had come up with in the commercial world and the guest star world. So I knew them, and it was a show about being that kind of person, the kind of actor I am. So I was excited to do it, and then also to audition for Melissa McCarthy and Ben Falcone because they were the producers of the show, and so I was excited about it. But at that point I totally forgot that I had worked with Melissa McCarthy all those years ago, because this is 15 years later, maybe more. So I walk into the room and I'm a little nervous because I wanted to get the part, but I took a deep breath and I did a good read, and then Melissa McCarthy went, I know you, and she was like, what was it we worked on? I remember you vividly from working. I just can't remember what it was, but I remember that you told a story about how within a couple of weeks you did several commercials in which you had to shove entire hot dogs into your face at once. And that was true. I did like 3 national commercials in a row, 2 of which aired, 1 of which didn't, where I had to jam entire hot dogs into my face as sort of a comedic bit. And I was like, oh my God. At first I was like, oh no, I think you're probably confusing me with somebody else, because that happens to me a lot. People think, I'm this and that because I look similar, whatever, or they've seen me in commercials and it messes with their head. So I was like, but when she told me that she remembered these hot dog stories, I was like, oh my God, this is legit. We work together. I was like, oh, and then, and then in the room, I'm like, oh, right, of course, we work together, of course. I still wasn't remembering, but, it was Melissa McCarthy remembering me, which made me feel horrible and but excited at the same time. Anyway, we went back and forth for a while, and then I left the room, said thank you, goodbye. We couldn't figure out what it was that we worked with each other. And I went down to the parking garage. It was in an office building in Burbank where this audition is. And I went down to the parking lot, got in my car, and then it hit me. Because another friend of mine who was on the show had mentioned to me months earlier, is like, hey, you remember we worked with Melissa McCarthy on that show? Because he was the lead of the show. Anyway, I was like, in that moment, I was like, oh my God, right. It's DC. And I called the casting director and directly, and I said, hey, do me a favor, just tell Melissa McCarthy that the show that we were on together was DC. And the casting director did, and apparently Melissa McCarthy's response was, that's it! Anyway, that's my other Melissa McCarthy story. I hope you've enjoyed this two-parter of the Donnie Williams Show, Melissa McCarthy style. And Melissa, if you're watching, you're not watching. This has been a Blursh production. Blursh.